Hey guys, it's Nikola and one and only great I am Anna Rudolf. We have a new background, a new backdrop for the very simple reason that yours truly had a little boo-boo in his house in New Jersey where we live for the duration of the pandemic. Basically, we lost first power and then internet came back, and then we don't have any internet access. So I'm doing this from our New Jersey office, and it's good to see you guys here. And once again, a huge greeting to one and only, I am Anna Rudolf.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and thank you for being so committed to our shows that you travel to the office so that you can connect to the internet and stream today's chess lesson.
Well, full disclosure, I had to make a site visit to a client, and our New Jersey office is about 7 minutes away, and I really didn't want to cancel for various IRL eruptions. I've canceled plenty of streams recently, so I
Hmm.
figured we might as well see how well this laptop setup in the office works. So
It seems to be working pretty well so far. I think
good.
I think we can do it.
Knock on wood.
Yes. How's everybody doing today? And are you guys ready for another one of those sessions when Nicola and the viewers will need to work a lot? It's a 3 hour session of constant exercises, questions, and more questions.
Yes.
Intimidation Master Anna Rudolph. Hello.
Yes, and I think Intimidation Master puts it rather appropriately. And
I got that name in the chat and I really like it. I really
yes,
like it.
yeah. So I'm looking for as always. I'm looking forward to the streams with Anna. I'm finding them very useful, and I'm looking forward here. And first, a quick shout out to my dear friend Lali, to 2511, to a follow a kilowatt 000, and everybody who has joined us. So I'm looking forward to what Anna has in mind for today.
I thought that for today I was gonna bring another game that it's not that recent. Actually, not recent at all. But we
Okay.
started studying some of the classic champions, some of the legends from different eras. And the last time when we were studying the games of Mikhail Tal, I thought that one of the games was not giving much of justice to his opponent because he made a big mistake in that game and he crumbled what he would normally not do. Do you remember that game, Nicola?
I certainly do.
So for today, I decided we're gonna be looking at the games of Grandmaster Yefim Geller and
Okay.
see how brilliantly he can and had been playing for a long time. He was a world class player, world championship candidate. He was, I think, a 6 time candidate. But I'm gonna give the floor to Nicola because he knows chess history way better than I do. So Nicola, what should people know about Yefim Geller in your opinion?
Yefim Geller is well. I have a personal association with Yefim Geller because I grew up in Belgrade, now Serbia, then Yugoslavia, and Yefim Geller was a frequent visitor, like Tal himself. As a matter of fact, they both spoke that the language at that time was called Serbo-Croatian,
Hmm.
uh, and they both spoke the language very fluently, and you know, it's a very good. It, they always said that they felt like feel they're at home whenever they come to Belgrade, and one of the I think Yefim Geller was one of those players that deserves very strong consideration. Oh, Master Janimir Feingold, thank you for the cheer. It's very greatly appreciated. And thank you, GM Todoritsky, for this. And thank you. I'm talking about my memories about Yefim Geller. But Geller is one of those players that should have been a world champion and could have been a world champion, and
Mm-hmm.
probably is a strong candidate for being a strongest player never to be a world champion. I think he's there with maybe Keres, Korchnoi, and a few other guys. Vasily Ivanchuk. Well, Vasily Ivanchuk still can become a world champion.
Yeah,
He's a very strong player. I don't want to add that to this. So he is a strong candidate for a very very top or very close to the top on that list. Um, I still remember he was playing some very strong masters and he was giving them rook odds and he was beating them routinely. And I remember they were rather shocked and upset and so on and so forth and wondered how he was able to do that. The big question here is he has this unique attacking style, and like Tal, though Tal became a world champion, he was usually part of winning Soviet teams for about 30 to 40 years. In other words, when you look closer, you will discover that, for example, when Spassky was playing Fischer, Geller was a big part of his team. My favorite story about Geller, and I'm sorry, I'm having an old man sin of sharing too many stories, was
no,
uh,
we
uh,
really enjoy those. I think your stories are
thank you,
definitely
Anna.
something
You're
to
very
learn
kind.
from.
He was the most fascinating combinatory and attacking player of his era. He had a positive score against quite a few champions. He had a positive score against Bobby Fischer, and fairly significant in his favor. And for a very very long time, he was at the very top of world chess, not just just Soviet chess, but world chess. So. So I'm actually very
Definitely
excited to
a
see
player
another
that
game.
should be more known than he is. I feel like it's a bit of an injustice that his name is not among the ones that people recall easily. So he's not one of the most known non-world champion but top players of his time.
Oh, and just wanted to give a quick route, quick shout out to Chiquitas. Thank you. They're raiding us with a party of 32. Thank you, ladies. That's very greatly appreciated. Chiquitas is a channel by two very strong lady players from Slovenia, if I am not
Hmm.
mistaken. And I'm very greatly appreciate the raid. And please, if you don't follow them, please do follow them. Thank you. Oh, Bobby Fischer, three ladies. Okay, my bad. I actually was told by more than one people whose judgment I trust is that I should take a closer look at the channel, and I'm actually gonna do that later today or sometime. The European channels, the time zones are still very weird for me when it comes to Twitch, so that's my
Yes.
excuse. Oh, thank you, Vlad. Yes, Chiquitas are amazing streamers. I'm not sure I would put myself in that category, but thank you. That's very greatly appreciated, and thank you for the raid. So
I'm gonna
Geller.
check their channel out
All right.
myself, and I'm following right now.
Whom did Geller beat?
Geller beat a lot of players that I chose for today because I wasn't sure which of the
Okay.
games you would know by heart. So I want to make sure
Okay.
that we look at games that
I
you
don't know by heart.
don't remember. Yes.
Okay.
Um, will that be a danger if I say that one of my favorite games from the ones I selected is against Alexander Kotov, Geller with the white pieces? Uh,
Okay.
Do you recall any Geller game against Kotov that you will know this not move by move, but perhaps you remember the main theme?
Uh, Actually, I'm not sure, to be quite honest. Thank you, Vlad. That's very greatly appreciated, and thank you for the follow, Chiquitas. That's very nice. Hey, Danny, my friend. We have a Gellert team class today with one and only Anna, so I'm actually kind of excited. Keller Kotov played so many interesting games. I don't. You know what? I can't. I can't remember. I wish
That's a good answer.
I
That I
think,
was hoping for that answer because I really like this game, and I was just hoping that you don't know it by heart. But if if midway through the game you recognize the game and you think it's
I
not
will
gonna
let
be
you
an
know.
exercise,
Yes.
do let me know. 'Cause I want to make sure that it will be still a thinking task most of the positions. But then let's start with the cutoff game because I think it's one of the most impressive
Okay.
ones from my selection. We are
Okay.
playing with the white pieces.
Okay. Quick shout out to Ben. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for Czech's Coffee Cigarettes to the follow. And a big shout out to my dear friend Daniel Dimovsky. If we can give him a shout out, that would be very greatly appreciated. Okay, so lovely. Anna, you can't do this to me, all right? You
Yes,
can't
I
tell me
can.
that this is, I expect Keller Cotto, I
Oh,
expect
shoot.
this, and what is this, Berlin?
Yes, no, sorry. It is the normal rule of it. It is the normal rule of it. I
Okay.
forgot to include the a6 move earlier, but
Ah,
still,
okay, yeah,
it's
okay, the transposed. Good,
yeah.
thank you.
So we're gonna have just the main line of the Rui Lopez. Rook to e1, b5, bishop to b3,
Okay.
castle. How familiar you would say that
Oh
you
yeah,
are
I
with
play this all the time.
these
This is
plans? Mm-hmm.
basically an invitation to martial attack with which white politely declined and decided to play d3 instead of c3,
Yeah.
d5, or some other. That's
Yes.
d3 is one of the three
Mm-hmm.
anti-martial variations, together with a4 and h3.
Yes. Very good. Very good.
Hey,
Well done
Squirrely,
on
my
that.
friend. Thank you for the gift to Daniel. It's good to see you. How are city streets, my friend? Anyway, all right. Okay, so no martial attack.
D6 is played and c3, knight a5,
Fine.
bishop c2, and c5. Another standard plan in the Rui Lopez.
Okay. All
Knight
right.
to c7.
I'm very familiar with this. This is incidentally Chiu Zhao's most favorite opening that she plays both as black and white, and I played lots of games against this with her. So
Let's then have an evaluation in terms of, well, obviously this is a very complex position, but if you could talk about the plans in this position
sure.
and how would you proceed as white?
Okay, there are a couple of things here that are interesting, and very honestly, this is a very complex position with quite a few plans. Um, White normally plays h3 sooner rather
Mm-hmm.
than later to prevent bishop from developing on g4.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the big plan is basically a struggle between two positional pawn breakthroughs. The first breakthrough for white is to play d4 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That usually happens after quite a lot of maneuvering. In other words, this knight on d2 is kind of in the way, and it's supposed to go to f1.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chiquitas, thank you for the sub. That's very greatly appreciated, and thank you, Ulan, for gifting them that sub. That's very nice. So my apologies, knight f1 to knight g3, with an idea of to go to f5, and it's white here that usually attacks on the king side, and there is also some, if black gets too aggressive on the queen side, there is this motive with a4.
Mm-hmm.
The normal plan for both sides is something like this to f1, g3, which black usually counters with playing g6, rook e8, and bishop f8. This knight doesn't normally stay on a5. It normally goes back to c6, and then this bishop can be developed on b7, and or better on g4, and it's basically you're in for a long positional maneuvering that can, but there is and the center at some point may or may not get opened. Normally closing the center favors black because then it allows black to attack on the queen side. And I'm sorry, I gave a huge lecture. My, my
But
apologies
that
there.
was brilliant.
Yeah,
That is exactly what's going on in these type of Rui
yeah,
Lopez middle games. So very well summed up
yeah.
everything that are the maneuvers, the plans, who is aiming for what. Really good job. Really good job. In this position, how would you proceed if you were playing this as a white?
It's White's move. Okay.
Yes, after Queen C7.
Well, Queen C7 usually, White does. Hey, Davis, my friend, thank you for the raid of Party of Five. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you. That's very good to know. I can proceed with the standard plan. I probably need to play h3 to prevent the. I think that's we're still very much deeply into theory. I think the theoretical move here is to play h3
Mm-hmm.
and then proceed with the knight movement. I in this setup, I think White usually waits to play d4. He doesn't play
Mm-hmm.
it immediately, and and then it really depends on how what does Black do. You know, the one option is to go back on c6, decide what you're doing with this bishop. There is also some variations in which Black pushes c4. They are
Mm-hmm.
actually more they were not popular at that time. I think that's something that came into play with engines. And that's about it. I would if I'm white, I would play h3, f1, and then g3 or e3, and then proceed with control of either f5 if I'm attacking or this, and with the idea of push d4 at some point.
Yes, that could be one of the ways to proceed, and basically it's what is happening in the game, with the only exception being that Geller decided not to push h3, so he went for the knight maneuver immediately.
Okay.
Why do you think he didn't want to play h3, or why he considered it's not necessary?
I think that normally, I think he probably planned on pushing and getting the knight on e3, which then questions that knight.
So in case of bishop g4, how do you think he was going to react?
Well, Geller is a very strong attacking player, so I would assume that he would probably play something of knight e3. He can even, see if he can proceed to, you know, put a question mark on this bishop.
Mm-hmm.
He can play h3 after bishop on g4.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and there is also always in Ru Lopez after b5, Black has an option of pushing a4 and creating some sort of a play on the queen side.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, so bishop g4 is actually running into what we are aiming for, knight to e3 or h3, knight g3. In both cases, it won't manage to keep the pin, the bishop on g4. Very good. So for
and
that
just to
reason,
answer a
oh, sorry
question,
about
I'm
that.
sorry, in chat, Ragbawala, this is a game between Geller and Kotov. It's an
Mm-hmm.
old game. Thank you, Jacon, for the follow. And I speaking of h3, whether h3 is necessary or not, I was always told that you need to play h3 in this position,
Yeah.
but whether it's necessary or not, that's we can discuss. Anyway,
Yeah, and it's totally fine to play with h3. It's just also sometimes personal preference.
yeah.
Geller played knight to f1 first, and knight c6 is the move that
Okay.
Koto went for. How do we continue here?
Okay, so I'm continuing to play as Geller. I would presume that the standard continuation here is to play knight g3. Yes, that's Sepper's set. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Knight g3 is one of the options, and the other knight jump would be knight to e3. Do
e3.
you prefer g3 over e3? They are very similar, so this is once again personal preference.
Well,
Which one do you think is more useful for your
I
plans?
always, this is my personal preference, and for the record, I played this position a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not with that much success, mind you, as white. That's
Hmm.
I always felt the knight on e3, although it does control d5, um ends up being in the way of bishop on c1.
Hmm.
Oh, and haha, huge shout out to one and only Alan Nielsen, who is raiding for a party of 56. Alan
Thank you
Nielsen
so
is
much, Alan.
Alan Nielsen is, I don't know how to say this, but he's probably one of the strongest WFM players I have ever seen.
Yeah, she's really strong.
She's
She's
very
really
strong.
strong.
She's her title doesn't reflect her strength. She can probably take on quite a few WGMs,
Yeah.
and she's also a fabulous streamer. And please give her a visit. And if we haven't, let's give her a shout out. And thank you, Ulan, for gifting us up to Alan Nielsen. That's very
Mm.
greatly appreciated. It's always yes, Cruz. She has been sandbagging with her title. Oh, and Alan, I just realized that you don't have a diamond in this channel, so let's change that. So let's see if this works. Yeah, thank you. It's very good to see you, and needless to say, thank you so much for the raid.
Thank you, Alan. Hope you had a great stream, and welcome everybody to the latest episode of Nikola Learns Chess, which is Nikola suffers through a 3 hour torture session stream, is the other title of what we do every Wednesday here on Nikola's channel. We are today studying some of the games of Yefim Geller, who was one of the best players of his era. And this is a game he played against Alexander Kotov, another legendary player. The game is all the way from 1955, so many of you may not remember it or may not have been born by the time this game was played, but it's definitely a classic game to learn from.
Yes. And speaking of Kotov, there is one of his games that I remember. It was a game against Yuri Averbach. And Yuri
Hmm.
Averbach was a great player, and he out of nowhere just sacrificed the queen on h3 and then proceeded to play like nothing happened for all
Yeah,
intents and purposes. And then, anyway,
that's a really good recommendation
yes.
for a game to check out if you guys don't know it. So knight to g3 and knight to e3 both make sense in the game. Geller went for knight to e3, and let's see how he follows up afterwards, because as you
Okay.
said, the knight is now in the way of the bishop, so that's a downside of this knight jump. But he does have something very specific in mind when he played this move, and
Okay.
that's what's coming now after rook to e8. So what do you think was the line he was aiming for with knight e3?
Well, but the knight e3 line it means that he is looking at probably to putting that knight on d5 eventually. So it's also possible. Is it possible? I'm not. In this line, it's actually probably not possible to push d4 because e4 pawn is hanging.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, jump on f5 is always a possibility.
Yeah.
To be very frank, Anna, you see, what I would play in this position, and Sepper asked me
Yeah.
in this, and thank you, Sepper, my dear friend, for asking this question. I would probably play bishop f8, and or maybe g6 first. I would start, building this defensive structure that Black utilizes in Euro Lopez, which basically already did rook e8, then bishop f8, g6, and then that bishop controls the h6 and f6 files that are
Mm-hmm.
weak, but the pawn on g6 prevents any knight jumps on f5, which is what Black is trying to avoid here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um,
You said that you think white cannot push d4 because the e4 pawn is hanging. Let's just check that line one more time.
well, I mean, is it possible? It is. It's just, I mean, it's not directly hanging. but usually
Uh-huh.
I always assume that knight on e3 indicates that there won't be a d4 push, and of course Keller is going to contradict me in the next move.
Did you know?
I
And
think
also,
I
will he
think I
care? Will
know.
he care if he drops that
I,
pawn? Do you think he will mind it even?
I think I recognize a tone in Anna's voice that she's already enjoying it because I'm setting myself up. All right, so let me
Yes,
put it this way: Geller played d4 here, right?
he did.
Okay, good,
Yes.
thank you. Anna, you should not
D4.
play poker, okay?
I'll not play poker, but tomorrow I am coaching Easy with Aces. Fintan is another PogChamp participant, and I'm gonna have my first coaching session with him tomorrow. So I hope to learn from him some poker skills too, if I can pick up something on the way.
Finton is a great guy. So
Yes, yes,
yeah,
he
he
is.
really is. And anyway, and he whenever Alexandra swindles him, which happens on a rather regular basis, he gets really upset. So
He does get really upset. I saw in one of the highlights on the Bottas Live YouTube channel when Finton had everything up, a queen, two rooks,
sure,
three minor pieces, and he still mated Alex. Alex had only just one
I
last
think
bishop to
twice.
sacrifice. Oh, it happened twice in
It happened
that session.
twice.
I didn't
Yes, yes,
realize.
yes. I think yeah. Anyway. All right, so Geller played d4. Thank you, Yefim. That's very greatly appreciated. All right. So I was led to. So what does Black do here? And very frankly, this is very useful for me because this is a very, as you said, very complex position that has been studied and analyzed to death.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I like to play martial attack, to not go into this.
Yes, I can understand you fully.
All right. One thing that I heard from Mark Esserman, my dear friend, is that playing d5 here as white is not a good idea, which
Mm-hmm.
we can discuss later. So my understanding is that taking once is preferred to open the c file.
So you would take with the c pawn that opens up the c5, correct?
Yeah, because you see that then that's one option, and then I see no reason for Black not to continue to build this defensive infrastructure. So if I'm Kotov in this position, um, you know, does Black have to sack a pawn and play d5? In this position, my apologies, I'm just going to turn that off. I think it's probably a little bit too risky. Of course, I wouldn't play it.
Mm-hmm.
I usually you want to play d5, when the knight's on b1 and take advantage of attacking opportunities. I wouldn't play here. c4, c4 kind of I'm afraid fails to just Black takes cd4 and then has a very strong outpost.
Mm-hmm.
So don't capture with c4. Okay, Miras, I believe you.
Why
Um,
not? Why not get with the
that's
c
what
pawn? I'd like to see
queen
the
is not well
reasoning.
placed. I played this position against Chiu a couple of times, and I played this against Mark, and somehow or another, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, or it's my bias, or I wasn't playing it right. Somehow this hitting this bishop on c2 always came into play in those games.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so if you're asking me what I would play as Scott, I would take on d4, and then I would proceed because I think that c file. What this also allows Black, if White takes, there is this jump on b4, which is topical in this position.
Yeah.
And then immediate question, what does White do with this thing? And then, if White allows me, I can't play bishop g4, but I'm going to take this bishop away from c8, and then put one of the rooks on c8, and I kind of have a control over c file, and I kind of like it. So
Yeah.
Anyway,
That makes perfect sense what you said.
yes.
Take with the c pawn, open up the c file. Now knight
Uh,
b4 is an option. Let's take a look at that position a little bit. After knight b4, how do you think white would react?
well, there's only
What's the
one
best?
move, which is bishop b1, because that Spanish bishop is probably one of the strongest pieces. We don't want to exchange it.
True. And so
And
we keep protecting the pawn on e4 as well.
yes. And then what can black do? I was told, and I kind of believe, that bishop doesn't really belong on b7 here,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not an impossible move to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and obviously the knight is going to be chased away after a3, but and it only really has one place to go, which is back to c6.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if black can take advantage of this open c file, you know, why not? So I would probably consider, and I'm now here way out of my theory, I would probably just play bishop b7, rook c8, and hope for the best. Or,
Sure.
as Lali said, play a5 and hope maybe jump on a6 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
If bishop b7, now let's turn the tables and think of this position from white's perspective. What do you think would be the best follow-up here? And just to say to Mieras, yes, bishop b3 also makes sense. So instead of bishop b1, bishop b3 is the other option. That we can take a look at that later. But
yeah.
now this is key. After bishop b7,
After bishop b7, I probably still have time to play a3.
mm-hmm.
And then after knight c6, then playing d5 actually deserves serious consideration. Because that knight needs to go somewhere,
Yep.
and then question here is a5 to c4. How realistic is that to jump and so on?
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so Mieras, I think this line is something I would follow. As I said, I'm very far from being an expert in these positions. These positions are very maneuvering, very positional, and pretty difficult to play. You're talking about queen c7. Okay.
Yes, I think the reasoning earlier was that if we take with the c pawn, then the c file, it looks like it's good for black, but black might
May
not be in
not be.
time.
May not be good.
Um,
Okay.
but I think especially in this line, basically what was slow, that after knight b4, bishop b1, if black could play a few moves at the time, so develop the bishop and bring the rook to the c file all at once, then maybe this is fine.
But
Because black is still lacking the development of the bishop, now a3 comes immediately and then d5 with a tempo. So you are right that the black knight will be chased back with all
yeah.
those pawn pushes, and it doesn't really have a good square. Knight a5 maybe to try to bring it to c4, but this isn't a dream position for black.
No, it's far from it. And this is one advantage of knight on e3, because it does obstruct that knight from coming from to c4. Hey,
Yeah.
Pataf1, thank you. Hi, thank you. Hi, thank you for the follow. Very greatly appreciated. Thank you, even Chessmaster, for the cheer. That's very greatly appreciated.
Yes, so after knight b4, both bishop b1 and bishop b3 makes sense. The e4 pawn will not be an issue because of tactical motives with the d5 square, but both bishop moves are good and strong. So for that reason, instead of knight b4, let's think of something else. What other candidate moves do you think black can consider here?
Well, there is a question as to what to do with that, light square the bishop. And
Mm-hmm.
the plan that was basically the basis of this, of still that bishop f8, g6. That's still there. That also has an other advantage too. When if white plays d5, there is a e7.
Mm-hmm.
field for it, and then after knight g6, you can even say that that knight can aim for f4 and see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm black and the knight b4 is not a good option, and I agree, there is also a possibility, to I would probably play bishop on f8 here
Mm-hmm.
to reinforce e5 and also prepare g6.
Yes, and if white were to continue with d5, where would you place the knight?
Then I think I need, you know, can I play knight on e7? I can.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so with
Yeah.
by placing the bishop on f8, you also have
So
freed the e7 square. The bishop can be fianchettoed, and the knight, well, has this square, which also
yeah.
is a possible knight maneuver. So we will use the g6 square either for the knight or a pawn push. And that's way better than having the knight on a7 or a5
Yes.
in a situation where you cannot make it to c4.
Yeah. And if I can't do it on b7 on e7, I would probably borrow idea from the Breyer variation and just play it to put it back on b8 and knight d7
Yeah.
and then
Yes.
jump elsewhere. Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Okay.
Yes, very good. So this would be one other option. There are plenty of options here. It's a complex position. Let's also take a look at the possibility of trading everything on d4. So what would that position be like? What do you think if black takes here either with the knight or the pawn on d4?
Okay, let me think for a second. Well, take would take, and then you end up with this. You end up with this rather ugly-looking pawn
Mm-hmm.
on. Well, you. The thing here is, well, there is this c2 bishop that's not hanging, but it's kind of there. But d6 pawn is obviously a big question mark in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing. Then that queen on d4, which I presume what we are ending up, which is basically knight takes, queen takes.
Yeah.
Ends up being pretty well placed and quite strong. White can play here knight d5 if he wants to clarify the position. There is also a possibility of a pawn attack with e5 with attack on h7.
Mm-hmm.
It's and the black appears to be a little bit cramped, to be honest with you. That pawn on d6 is a weakness, but it's also an obstruction. So I don't like this for black, to be very frank.
Yes, in general, this everything you said, this backward pawn on d6 is a weakness. White has more space, more activity. The d5 square, f5 squares are also an issue, not just the pawn on d6 itself. But what if I were to tell you that because of certain patterns and tactical motives, this actually can be okay for black, or even more than okay?
Okay. Well, then let's see what those patterns are.
So it's, of course, I'm talking about a very concrete line. If we were to just make normal developing moves, then yes, white is better for all the reasons that Nikola has mentioned.
Okay, well, we can borrow the motive from martial attack and play d5.
So what is the idea behind that pawn sacrifice?
Well, the idea behind that pawn sacrifice is that it would first it would open this diagonal, and more importantly this diagonal. Second, a white queen from centralized would become slightly you know, will become exposed.
Yeah.
Also, if that queen ultimately ends up on d5, then there is this very nice bishop b7, which is actually already one of the motives in the martial attack. Then there is
Hmm.
possibility of attacking that queen with c5, and then you have bishops on c5 and b7. That's, you know, the if I'm white king, I'm getting slightly nervous.
Yes. Yes, that is indeed the idea behind this pawn sacrifice. Everything you mentioned with the
Yep.
bishop and the queen suddenly becoming really active. So for the price of a pawn, black is activating two of their pieces,
Sure.
as well as this could be that's a new
That's a question
open
mark.
file.
You have
Hmm.
the knight g4, which is interesting.
Here knight
Not
g4.
immediately, but as a
Oh,
motive
as
down
a
the line.
future idea.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but you know
Yes.
there is a quick bishop c5 here. That's a pretty strong move.
Hmm.
Uh,
So bishop c5 is one of
yeah,
the
bishop
main options
c5
here.
would be a
Yeah.
candidate move,
Hmm.
and you know we can also play bishop b7. Not maybe immediately, but that's it. Really opens up the white for attack, and even we can play bishop d6 and ask white how it's going to defend the pawn on h2.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of those options. So bishop c5, bishop d6, or anything else that you would consider as
And
main
we can
candidate
add
moves.
bishop b7
Bishop
because
a7.
this pawn is going to fall probably in
Yeah.
that situation, but which may or may not be what we are aiming for.
Hmm.
Okay, so all right, so basically let's borrow a line from Marshall and play bishop d6.
Hmm. Bishop d6. We have a clear threat. The h2 pawn is hanging, and at the
Okay.
same time, you're opening up the rook's file, the e
Yeah.
file for the e8 rook. What would white do here?
This is actually pretty tricky because this opens up several multiple threats.
Hmm.
One is, you know, if I play h3, then there is always an option to play this, you know, to sacrifice on h3.
Hmm.
Also, and this is a very concrete threat, this bishop is under attack because there is a line here, there's simple tactics here.
Yes.
So you get two pieces for a rook, in which case the material advantage disappears.
Yeah.
And if you know, if if white plays something like g3, then you have even something like knight g4.
Because now there's a pin on the e file.
And this knight is overloaded. It does what it does. It defends this bishop. It's pin. It has like a pin against this rook, and you know it's. I mean, it also protects the g2 pawn. Not that it makes a difference, but you know the fact that these two motives are there gives like quite a lot to play for.
Yeah.
And you know, just I'm thinking loud. If this was a long game, I would probably spend some 10 minutes or 15 minutes thinking. This is keeping this threat open. It's probably why bishop d6 is better than bishop c5.
Yes, very good, very good. So that the bishop is not blocking neither the queen nor the rook, and it's a forcing line because, as we said, we need to deal with the hanging pawn as white, g3 or h3. Let's say white goes h3.
Okay, we can just take on e3, for example.
Yeah, the most forcing line and very effective. White can, if they want to, they can take on h7 with a check to at least grab that pawn. How would you take back with knight or king?
Oh, good question. Um, hmm. All right. So I don't see any use for any checks. And knight going on h7 can go back to g5, which may or may not be useful. Doesn't appear to be very useful. Um, hmm. Interesting. I think it's. Is it safe to take with a king? Probably is. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably safer to take with a knight. I am unfortunately not seeing any tactical motives that would determine one or another. I think not taking with a knight is a safer option.
Yes, I agree with you that there isn't that big of a difference, but taking with the knight is certainly safer. And as you
But,
said, the knight can then come toward g5 as well, not just back to f6.
uh,
So the rook will be taken on e3, and how would you continue here as black? And after that, how do you evaluate this position?
okay, so um, let me think for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am. Uh, I mean, the material is basically equal or slightly better for white because white has a rook and two pawns for two pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, I think it's black here that has the initiative.
Yes. So even though material-wise, white is doing better, 1 point better, but the pair of bishops is what black has, and you're saying that black has the initiative. How would you continue here? How would you place your pieces, and what shall we aim for? What's the plan?
Okay, so well, we need to prevent white rooks. My apologies, white rooks from being developed.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue here is, I mean, we can go pawn grabbing and play bishop e5 and then take on b2, but uh, that that looks like a waste of an advantage, to be very
Mm-hmm.
frank. Um, I think something along the lines of we need to activate our rook on a8.
Mm-hmm.
That knight needs to come into play,
Mm-hmm.
and bishop on b7 would basically prevent any potential rook c6 shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. True.
Um, I don't see any immediate attack threats from as far as black is concerned. So what I would play, I would probably play something like bishop b7 or knight f6.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it makes
Uh,
perfect sense, as
yes,
you mentioned, to develop the bishop onto the long diagonal, put pressure on the d5 pawn, and also control the c6 square. As you said, that there might be a rook appearing and wanting to enter our camp, but now the two bishops take care of all the squares that could be vulnerable. So that's great. It's a developing move. Let's just play out a few moves and see how would the game develop.
sure.
I'm gonna play rook a to c1.
And just wanted to say hello to my friend Sledgehammer. It's good to see you,
Mm-hmm.
my friend. And yes, Sleepy Mario, I like the bishop on b7. Let's call it a bias. All right, so rook c1 is one of those moves that everybody makes automatically, right? So it's
Yes.
fine. Okay, so we need to, we're not playing Botta's Gambit, so we need to get the queen out of this. Well, we can play queen d7, and then we're basically threatening to take on d5.
Mm-hmm.
indirectly. Not that that's a good move or anything else, but that's one of the possibilities. Um, that's a natural possibility. We also, I'm sorry, guys. I'm also, this office has one major disadvantage. It's cold.
Oh.
They have the AC running as if it's full with people, and it really isn't. Sorry about that. So, and whatever you do with the thermostat, it doesn't make much of a difference. Anyway.
I hope it's not too cold, and
No, it's fine.
if you're not feeling well, we can always
Thank
do
you,
a shorter
Annalise.
session.
No, that's fine. It's just, all right. So Queen D7 is a natural move.
Mm-hmm.
Queen A5 maybe too tricky, because I don't, it's not that White has any direct threats. But the question here is it better? Do we want to keep the queens on board?
Good question.
Tia, thank you. I'm hydrating.
I should too. Thank you.
Because if we play Queen A5, then White can force an exchange of queens, which I think in this position would favor White, as a matter of fact. Because
Why do you think so? Why do you think that an exchange of queens favors White?
These bishops do control all, most, not this one, but do control more or less 3 point. But white rooks are already on open files. This bishop is a blocker, which is not good. We need to get this rook developed. Knight on each h7 still needs to come into play.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to keep the queens on board. So
yeah.
All right.
Good
so point. I think I don't want to overthink this. I think Queen D7 is a perfectly natural move.
Yeah. Also, what Miras has added that after Queen A5, A3 is also an option for White. Then just say to the Black Queen that it's not doing anything on A5. I fully agree with you that your Queen D7 move is natural. It does create an immediate threat because of the D5 pawn.
Yep.
And it's just way more active to keep the Queen on D7.
Yep.
Really good job. How would you evaluate this position in terms of who is doing better?
These positions are ones that I usually find very hard to play because there is nothing really concrete, both from attack and defense standpoint.
Yeah.
And you need to find a strategic positional plan and basically stick to it or adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
I like the bishop pair, and I prefer a bishop pair to rook and 2 pawns.
Yeah. I fully agree with you.
Yeah, thank you. No, pawn on d5 is a passed pawn, but is it a weakness or is it a strength? It's subject to, anyway.
Yeah, and the thing is, because we have the minor pieces versus the rook, Black is able to put pressure on that pawn both with the bishop and the knight, apart from the fact that it's already hanging for tactical reasons, possibly, depending on whether there's rook d1 or not. But Black can always bring the knight back to f6 and then want to take it, while White has no light squared bishop and no knights. So there's no minor piece that can help guard the d5 pawn.
No.
The queen on d4 on its own will not be able to protect it. And even if you bring a rook to d1, because the queen is first and then the rook, it's still not protecting the pawn well enough against 2 minor pieces.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Hey, I beat GM Studer. I'm not wearing a hat because I actually don't have any hats with me here. I'm streaming from our New Jersey office. Thank you, Chiyu, for subscribing. It's very good. I'm looking forward to watching your adoption match against Aaron. I watched briefly, but I saw that you guys had a lot of fun. And my understanding is, I looked at the score; it was 8-1, so that means he didn't adopt you. So congratulations. and it's good to see you
Congratulations
here.
to you. Very well done. And
Thank
also
you.
congratulations on your latest achievement with the growth of the channel. I'm looking forward to the special stream. Yes, this
Okay.
position for black, I think, is a really promising one. Material up for white, but for all the reasons that Nikola has mentioned, black has a better position. So this would be a good chance to play for a win as black. In the game, of course, this did not happen because why would have it
Of
happened,
course,
right?
it never does.
Why would have it happened? Let's go all the way back to when we pushed d4 as white. And in the game, Kotov took on d4 with the e pawn. Let me just double check if I
Okay.
remember correctly, but I'm pretty sure this was the game. And after c takes d4, this could still transpose. So black still has the option of taking on d4 with the knight, and then we would land in this situation where the pawn sacrifice with d5 is really strong. I think black takes the initiative here,
Okay.
and I don't know how Geller would have reacted to this, but I prefer black's position here. So d4, 93 d4. You had the right intuition, Nikola, that it wasn't the ideal plan because black had this counter push. Didn't happen in the game,
Okay.
but we're gonna now take a look at not c takes but e takes, c
Okay.
takes, and after that bishop to f8 is what Kotov responded
Okay.
with.
Which is topical for these positions.
Mm-hmm.
It's threatening the pawn on e4, and it's the usual plan with bishop f8, rook e8, g6, and so on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Incidentally, this is Chiu's favorite opening, so I'm very glad that we're showing this when she's with us. So, oh, thank you, Theo, for the cheer. That's very greatly appreciated. Okay. All right. So I have to say one thing, Anna, and I'm going to be a little bit of a tease here. Where are the fireworks?
Well, we are getting ready for the fireworks.
These are, Geller and Kotal. I'm expecting, this is move 15.
And the board is not on fire just
And,
yet on move
you know,
15.
what,
You're
they
right.
exchanged
You're right.
one pawn? Really?
How solid.
I'm
They
kidding, of course.
traded it instead of sacrificing it. Yes, it's true. There's no fireworks just yet, and maybe not even next move or next few moves.
Yeah,
But we do need to keep developing our pieces. So,
sure.
what do you think would be a setup for white here?
Okay. All right.
Also, after bishop f8, is the e4 pawn hanging? Just a simple question there, with the bishop dropping back to f8, opening up d5 for the rook. Sleepy Mario with a bet on d5.
Yeah, d5 I'm not sure works here, because after knight e5 it blocks there. There's also a possibility you can push e5 and forget about the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, none of the standard plans really work here, but e5 is actually quite legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
There is also a possibility of no, that's too risky. I was thinking of doing jumping on f5, but jumping on f5 is there. You can also play push the knight on. You can even play knight d5
Mm-hmm.
because you want to remove the obviously with this bishop being where it is, this is some sort of a legitimate threat. If you remove the pawn of e4 in a more convenient way, and then you ask a question about this knight, there is there are even some possibilities of sacrificing on h7, and I'm not saying it's a good move or not.
Mm-hmm.
The problem here is how to do it while at the same time questioning this. And honestly, knight d5 is probably the way to do it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily care about the d4 pawn
Uh-huh.
because I don't think black has time to take it. Because after takes and takes, you cannot take on d4 because I'm going to take the rook on e8.
Okay, so let's calculate that line because it's really forcing. Knight d5, knight takes, e takes.
Let me think for a second. Okay. All right. So all right. So let's see here. We can also play knight f5, but that doesn't look. All right. Let's go for the forceful line.
Yeah.
Forceful line is knight d5, and I don't see that white has anything better than taking.
Mm-hmm. What happens afterwards?
Well, I was about to say it would be nice if we can jump over this pawn and take on h7, but we can't. So, white takes, and then black can take on this.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes, and we need to take, and
Yeah.
we can take. We can take with a queen, or we can take with a knight. I
So
think,
after rook takes e1.
yeah, we probably want to keep the knight in an attacking mode.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have. So what does black do with the knight? If black takes with the knight, then we can take, play queen e4, and we're attacking the rook.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not good for black.
So once again, that line would go as knight d5, knight takes,
Okay,
e takes.
so it's this,
Yeah.
this. Oh, I'm so takes.
Yeah.
I take with a queen, takes here,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not jumping over it. But
Yeah.
I'll venture to say that this is a very comfortable position for white.
Okay, let's go into a bit of a detail
Actually,
here.
maybe
So
not. Hold on.
queen e4, immediate threat of mate. How would black react to this?
Yeah, I think I jumped this. Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go here for a second. And we take.
Mm-hmm.
And we have decided that there is no option than this and this, but we don't want to take with this, and we end up here. Okay, let's actually look at this for a second.
Yeah. So what does black have to do here?
Well, the problem is that this thing is still hanging, and then obviously black can play f5, and we haven't really achieved much, have we?
Yeah. F5 is one of the options. What would be another option? Just to compare possibilities for black. Doesn't have too many, so let's see the few that actually make it to defend against the mate.
Okay, there is an option to play g6.
Mm-hmm.
And we still cannot take on d4, which is what I was hoping for.
Yeah. How do you find this position, and how do you?
Uncomfortable for white.
Yeah.
Because
What is black threatening?
This is a major threat.
Yeah, bishop to f5.
Yeah. And yeah, we're in trouble here. Okay.
Yeah. But it's good that you pointed out that this was a tactical motive, queen e4. The only thing is that because of the c file, white is not in time to take on d4. The bishop is hanging, and we don't make it.
I managed to miscalculate. I was under the impression that this d pawn disappeared, in which case, this rook is hanging.
Yeah,
Which
but
it
that's
isn't.
because we started here. You calculated the line here,
Yeah,
and it in terms of visualization. In the moment when you're looking at the position, there is nothing on the diagonal, so it is tricky to calculate lines like this, and
sure.
suddenly a pawn will be blocking the way.
Okay. All right. So we are basically still evaluating knight d5, and I don't see any
Yes.
improvement here. So we're gonna discount that whole line.
Good, good. But it
And
had to be considered. It's one of the most
okay,
forcing lines.
okay. So we can. That's the most aggressive line.
Yeah.
We can play knight f5.
Mm-hmm.
We can also play d5, and I kind of already declared myself that I don't like d5 because of knight d5, and I'm permanently blocked this bishop from doing anything useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so what that leaves us with is something along the lines of e5.
Let's see what happens after e5. That's another pawn sacrifice.
Okay, and knight f5. We can also take on c5.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take of c5, what do we do here? Okay, so let's start with e5. So I don't think this knight has a useful field to jump to.
Yes,
So
that is correct. If it leaves the d5, if it leaves the f6 square, the
it's
d5 square is ours.
d5, and then this pawn is technically hanging.
Yes. Can black take it?
Good question. Probably, actually. All right. So what's the line here? And here, actually, that's the line we discussed work.
So you're looking at e5, and after e5.
Well, e5, the black can actually play knight g4.
Not take on e5.
Not take on e5, but then it takes on d6, and it gets pretty ugly pretty quickly.
How do you evaluate the position after taking on e5? Because we will need to check if that pawn sacrifice is good for white or black. So e5.
So that's based. The line is e5, d5, takes on e5, takes on e5.
Yeah.
And then black can take on e5 with a knight.
Mm-hmm.
The problem there is so I can actually can I play queen d5 in that position? I'm sorry.
So move by move, that would be
the move by move. I'm actually gonna make them so here, 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 here. Right? I can't do that, but maybe I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And
how shall black react to knight d5?
Problem is that black can take this, right?
And after queen takes d5?
And then the queen takes d5, takes on f3, and I'm naked.
Yes, that's a painful one indeed.
That's not a useful line, is it?
We spotted the tactical motives for black, indeed.
Okay. Well, it's very nice. It's very nice. It's very nice to find tactical motives for your opponent, usually.
Yes.
Okay, so we can't do that. And in this position, we have eliminated the center for center tension, and I would venture to say that this is now a pretty even position.
Mhm.
Am I missing?
Even or even better for black because
Probably
of what you
better for
said.
black. Yeah.
The tension is gone from the center, and because of placing our knight in the way, now
Yeah.
that the position
And
has
we're pawn
opened up,
down.
pawn down, and we are lacking development. And also, we're gonna take more time developing the queen side than what black
Yeah.
needs to develop.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't, this is why I don't like playing this. I hope Chew is not here anymore. Okay. All right.
So are we back to knight d5 or any other options? You looked at knight d5. You looked at e5.
And is knight f5 an option?
That's another thing to consider.
Okay. All right. Let me think for a second. All right. So knight f5. It's one of those moves that are, well, we're gonna have an exchange, and then the knight will be hanging right on e4. In other words, the line being something along the lines of knight f5, knight e4, takes, and what am I and I'm sorry, yeah, that doesn't work either. Hold on a second. You guys can see me, right, Anna?
I can see you.
Yeah.
Stream as well, I think.
And so now I've sacrificed an exchange for no reason, so that's not good. All right, so I have a little problem is that my screen decided to disappear, so.
Oh, really? I think
Fine.
everything is working. I see the
No, it's
stream.
fine. What matters is what you guys are seeing. So no, that doesn't work. So let's consider. We are now considering this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see there are any direct tactics here, right? But here. All right, so how do I handle this position? So black can just take bishop f5, and after takes, exchange rooks, and then take on d4. And that's technically one pawn plus. And then I have a pretty dim pawn on f5, so that doesn't work either. Okay. All right, so Anna, I tried everything and nothing works. Thank you. Mission accomplished.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that because this is a really complex position and there's no straightforward line that would give any advantage to white. This is just a complicated position with chances for both, but a lot of possibilities to make mistakes. Like with the line with knight
Which I
e5.
have amply demonstrated in the last half an
Knight
hour.
e5, e5, they were all leading to advantage of black.
Okay.
But I'm gonna tell you as well that the move that Geller chose is also not the best. So we have been looking at the lines you calculated, and none of them were really working out for white. But the move that Yefim Geller chose here is also on that same page that black could take advantage of it. He played b3.
Okay.
And I really like IBGM's too. There's a solution for the no head day. He's saying he does have a head taped onto his screen so that you would have
thank
one.
you, Miaris. I hear you. d5 or bishop d2. I think b3 is along the same line. You just want to put the bishop on b2.
Yes, yeah, but actually, it's a good point that we didn't address d5 and d5. Objectively speaking, you said, Nicola, that it's like it's very difficult decision to make when it's good, when it's not so good.
Yep,
Here, it probably was one of the best
best
ones,
moves.
but after 95, this is just an equal position with chances for both. So this is
Gotcha.
this is not advantage,
Yep.
but maybe it was one of the best moves. Yes.
Hey, Howard, my friend, it's good to see you. Yes, and there is always a good perennial, as the Hound of CS saying, it's just play a4, which is a classical option. But
Yeah,
all right, so he played b3.
it did. Now, why is it not one of the best moves?
Well, the question here is, what does it achieve?
Mhm.
Um, we can't take on e4 because of the knight to d5. Right, okay.
That's important. Yes,
That's
let's
important to
just show it
note,
for a moment.
but yeah, okay. Uh, can Hey Hermione117, thank you for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you. Welcome to the Anna's torture chamber with her one and only student being tortured. That would be me. That's fine. All right. So what do we do here? What is the black option here? Um, Black can play knight b4, which is a move I think I'm the only one who likes on this stream. Um, Black can also push d5, which was something we considered and tried to open the files, though this is slightly less effective with these pawns standing when they're standing.
Mm-hmm.
There is also an option of you can take on d4 and do that massive exchange and see what happens there. What I would do in this position is, these positions are great to recognize one's own shortcomings as chess player.
It's a really difficult position. Don't think that
No,
this
I
is
know, I
easy.
know.
And Geller played b3, so
Yeah, here, there is this good old motive of, I discussed this earlier, okay,
Mhm.
in which, this particular threat is useful.
uh-huh.
So now might be a good time to kind of put it in action. So push this, and if white takes as white will, um, you can you can actually you can take again, or you can play d5.
Yes.
But the idea here being that after takes d5 takes, there is this lovely rook e3 option.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's, I never thought it would come into play after this, but there it is.
So the line would be, will you play out the moves that you mentioned? After b3, takes on d4, knight takes, queen takes, and d5, a very strong move.
Yeah,
Same idea. We want to open up the e file and then sacrifice the rook on e3, get two minor pieces for the rook, basically, after rook takes e3.
yeah,
Um, and white can't really escape from it because e5 here is not, well, it's not even an option. In the other line, it was seemingly an option, but now the e file is already open. So
yeah,
this is really forcing.
yeah. That's okay. So, and I presume that's not what Kotov played.
No, unfortunately for Kotov, he didn't play this, and that's
Are
why
we
in the
saying
end,
that Kotov should have played this?
yes,
All right, then
he
let me
should.
celebrate that I found a line that Kotov didn't. Thank you. I'm so proud
Yes,
of myself.
and you've done it now twice because he could
Yeah.
have played this a move earlier too, and you found it in that position too before bishop f8.
Okay.
So you were going to take with the c pawn. He did not. He took with the e pawn,
Okay.
and then he dropped the bishop back to f8 and didn't realize about this motif of sacrificing
All
with
right.
d5. Well done.
Okay. Well, I'm very proud of myself. Thank you.
You should be very proud of yourself. And also,
All right.
Geller didn't see it because I think if he did see it, he wouldn't have gone for this line as white.
Okay.
It's bad for white.
Okay. So, what did Kotov play?
He played knight to b4. What do we
Okay.
do?
Okay. Well, there is, we don't want to surrender this bishop,
True.
so we probably have to play bishop e1. I don't see anything better.
Yep.
And
Natural move.
there are no forcing lines. So yeah, bishop
Yeah.
e1. Okay.
And now black took the pawn on e4 because this knight is now guarding the d5 square. So in the earlier lines, this
Yeah.
was not an option. We mentioned it that this was not possible. It loses a piece. But now after knight to b4, bishop
Kotov and pawn
b1.
grabbing. Okay.
Indeed. Free stuff. Was it free
Yes.
stuff? Let's see.
Okay. All right. So all right. So the question here is what Geller played in this position.
Yes.
Okay. Now, dumb question here is if we play a3,
Uh-huh.
yeah, he has this knight c3 thing that's kind of annoying. Okay.
Yes, if it wasn't
Yeah.
for knight c3, let's show that line because that's one of the main questions.
A3, something like this, and then it's pretty. That doesn't look good for black.
Yeah, this
knight
would win a
d5.
piece
That's wins the
again.
piece. Yes.
But as you spotted, after
It's knight
a3,
c3 makes a huge difference.
it is a huge difference, and the bishop will be taken.
Oh,
So
thank
there's
you,
no
thank you,
piece
by
losing.
BG Studer. I'll check it out. His hat wearing in Alessia Discord channel.
Oh,
All right, I actually want to see that. Hold on.
nice. That is nice.
Oh, that would be nice if I could type.
I'm curious to see that picture too.
Okay, and I hope there won't be any, embarrassing messages being shown when I open this, and we all know the dangers.
Yes.
I think there is certain, yeah. I still remember the miss you incident.
Which one was that? I don't recall it.
I'm not gonna elaborate.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Alessia's channel. Where is Alessia? Where is Alessia? Oh, she's gonna kill me if she sees that I can't find her channel. Oh no, this is how people get. So where is it? Where is it, Studer? In which part is it? Let me see that.
I'd like to see the picture too. You need to tell
Oh,
us
there
where
it
is
is.
it.
Oh, that's cute. Hold on.
Is there a way you can share it? I'm gonna wait for it to be updated on stream.
Yes.
I'm just checking
That's
it.
cute. That's a nice hat, actually. That's the type of hat that I would actually wear. So thank you.
Oh,
It's
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's so creative. I really like it. The taped hat.
Thank
This
you.
is next level fashion.
All right, that might be maybe the first meme in one of my things. So yes, I actually wear hats quite often.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so that's perfect. And let's go back to this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so after knight c3, that whole line doesn't work anymore, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there is knight on b1, and that then and black loses the pawn. So
Mm-hmm.
going back to the actual line, after knight b4, let me think for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, we need to play bishop b1. I don't think we have any way of doing it. And after knight e4, we have discovered that a3 doesn't work.
True. So what shall we do? Because the pawn was taken, this is the game.
Yeah, well, we can continue with a plan, and you know, the question here is, can we take on c5 and then play
And then?
knight d5?
Let's take a look at that.
Well, the idea here being this, and yeah, and then play this, and then I mean, I'm gonna take the best possible line. It can be do this, but then black has this, and we don't have much.
Yes,
So
black
that
has
doesn't
developed all their
work.
pieces and they are pawn up.
That doesn't work. And he took on e4, so,
He did.
and we're not gonna do a3. So we can just,
Yeah.
honestly, we can just continue with playing bishop b2.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that
that's the game.
that now asks the question about that, because now a3 is a threat, and yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so this is the game and we're gonna continue with this, but there's a question from the chat. What about knight to d5 immediately? So I'm gonna give this question to Nikola. Knight d5 immediately.
Without taking on d5?
Yes. So how do you see that line for white?
Okay. Can't I just... Oh, so take and take on e4? Okay.
Yes.
I would knight d5. Okay. That doesn't look right.
Your intention is really good, so trust your guts. But now let's review it.
What am I missing? Okay, so take on d. All right, so take on d5, take on e4. Take on e4, take on c. Oh no, we can't take on c1, but that might be the refutation there. So take on d5, take on e4. Take on d4.
So knight d5, knight takes.
All right, let me make this. So this, and I was kind of, oh, but this bishop is defended. Forget about it. That doesn't work. So the question mark is immediate
Knight d5 instead of a3. Okay. Yeah. Oh wait, once again, jump back to the other line. So no a3, but knight d5 immediately. Let's go back to, yeah, here knight d5.
Okay. Okay, so can I just I can just play knight f2, right?
Here knight f2. What happens if knight takes d5 first of all?
If knight takes on d5, I take the white takes on e4 with the bishop.
And
Right.
what happens afterwards?
All right. I'm missing something simple as usual. All right. So takes bishop e. Oh, it has bishop knight c3 again. That's the refutation. Okay.
Let's play at those moves and see if it's the correct
Yeah,
line.
that's the refutation. Okay.
Okay, what can white do here if there's any continuation for white?
Well, white needs to defend this bishop, right? But right. And now let's see here. Then we can take and take and this. Does that work though?
That's a good question. Does it work?
Maybe not. Huh.
How do you evaluate this position?
I'm thinking that this rook is gonna fall.
The rooks are definitely not connected, and the bishop on c1 is still not developed either.
And black can play this. And hold on, I'm missing something here. I mean, this is obviously much better for black, right? I know.
Yes. The question is how much better at this stage, but yes, it's definitely better.
I'm missing something simpler. Okay, so this. All right, so what we can do. What is it we can do? Not my day today. All right.
You can do it. You can do it,
Yeah,
Nikola.
that's fine. My apologies, guys. Okay, so let me be very concrete here.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hanging knight.
Yes.
So I need to address it. I have a hanging rook.
Mm-hmm.
We have just calculated that the line originally fought, which basically involved taking the bishop and then taking the knight, does not work. Hey, Sepper, thank you for the hydrate. There it is.
So it does not work for whom?
It doesn't work for me.
Knight takes.
Well, let's see. We calculated knight takes, then rook takes, right?
Yes, and here you calculated.
And I assume that the best move is bishop f5, but that may not be the best move, right?
Mm-hmm. So you're looking for something even better.
So I'm looking for something that works better. So I have to take the bishop.
Yeah.
And
the rook takes.
white has to take with this.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I do here? All right, so I'm missing something simple. What am I missing?
You may not be missing anything. You analyze bishop f5, and what other option do you think black can consider here? Just a simple way to continue.
I mean, I can just play bishop b7.
Yeah.
And what does white do?
Very good question. What does white do if it's just a simple developing move, bishop b7?
Well, I'm a pawn up, and I have a bishop pair, so I'm better.
Yeah.
Um, that might be good enough.
Yep, you can simply play bishop b7 or take and bishop b7. Both look interesting, but you're right. You don't have to go for bishop f5
Yeah, I don't need to
if
look
you
for
don't want
crazy
to.
tactics. Sorry, no,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I just
Well
play
done.
bishop b7, and then if I want to double the pawns, I can,
Hmm.
and open up the king and so on. I can even play d5. Anyway, okay.
Yeah. So this is really good for black. Question is, did we miss anything along the line? Do you think is there any other possibility for white that we should consider? May or may not be good, but is there anything else in that
Okay.
position after knight takes? So knight takes e4, knight d5, knight,
It's then a3, knight d5. Okay.
yeah, immediate knight d5, knight takes.
So, okay, so the queen is under attack.
Yeah.
So we need to do something with the queen.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I meant for white if you see any way to deviate. So knight takes d5,
Okay.
bishop takes e4,
And we
knight
have just
c3.
and we have concluded that yeah, okay.
Yeah, so let's stop here for a moment.
I can do this and queen c2, right?
True.
But then I run into, well, that's the same line, all right? Bishop
Is it?
f5. Actually, it's not. Hold on, because I have the king there. All right. And so I'm a pawn to the better as white in this position, right? But then I have this, which I didn't have before.
Yes. Does black
Gotcha.
have to play knight to e4 though after the check?
No, no. So after the check, this he doesn't have to play this. He can just returning the king is because there is a threat of knight g5 or take. There is a problem that this rook is hanging.
Yeah.
So I have to play this. Or I can play, well, if I play bishop f5,
Very good.
so I play bishop f5, and then if he takes, I play g6. And then I actually get to keep this rather beautiful knight.
Yes. Very good job, bishop f5, because we are still a piece up. Well
Yeah.
done. Bishop f5 is a good move here.
Yeah.
Also, black can consider not taking on h7, so that's another option. After knight
Correct.
c3,
Yeah.
bishop h7, you can consider king h8 as well because of the issues in white's position with the queen hanging mainly, but the rest of the piece is also not being ideally placed.
Okay. No, that's excellent. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes. But
Uh,
imagine that there's something even better than this for black. So all these positions should be better. But because in this line, at least white gets the pawn back, is still worse for white. So all these are good for black. But
yeah.
there's something even better here
Ah,
after bishop takes e4.
instead of bishop takes e4
Yeah, sorry, after bishop takes e4. So we are
for
looking
black.
for an even better line for black. Knight c3 is good, but there's something even more precise just to keep the advantage material wise as well.
Okay. All right, it's better than knight c3. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can take on e4 and then play knight c3, right?
Yes, and that move order changes quite a lot.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, that basically leaves me with a pawn and a better pieces, and then there is this tempo on b7. That's all I need.
Yeah,
And
so
black
the
should
line
be
would
winning.
be queen the queen has to go and
Okay.
defend the rook.
All right. Now Anna knows that these tactics are one of the weaknesses of my game, so I guess today is dedicated to me
You're good at
being
them. You're good
bullied,
at them,
being
Nikola.
bullied in these weaknesses. Thanks, Anna. I'm kidding.
No, no, you're really good at them. You've had a really busy week. It's normal.
No,
It's
thank you.
normal that
It's
with
only
your
yeah. It's only Wednesday. So anyway, thank you. No, no, no. Honestly, I agree. And to be quite frank with you, if there is anything I learned from Alexandra and Andrea is how easy uh, that that in terms of bang for the buck, ability to stop tactics like these is probably most important way to improve in chess. Really is.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Really true. Well done. So this would be a pawn up for black, pair of bishops,
yeah. Easy. That would
and
be a win.
yeah, black even has the initiative. So better developed pieces, better pawn structure, everything on black's side.
Okay.
Therefore, knight d5 is not good, but in the game, bishop b2 was played, and that's the move you mentioned. So after bishop b1, knight takes e4, free stuff. This is still a complex position, so
Sure.
there's no refutation, unfortunately, to knight takes e4, but bishop b2 develops the bishop. Now we are opening up those threats because the c3 square is guarded, so black has to be careful here. What do you think Kotov played to deal with those threats?
Okay, so the easy move is to just return on f6, all right?
Yeah, that's an option.
Okay. That's one. Option number two is to reinforce the knight and connect the rooks and play bishop b7. And I know I've been accused of having a bias toward that move, which is probably true.
But it does guard the d5 square.
It does achieve quite a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
That actually looks like a best move, like a serious candidate move immediately.
Yep.
We can play, I mean, I don't want to play f5, but that's also an option.
Mm-hmm.
That reinforces knight on e4 and threatens pushing f4 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
We can still play the fabled d5,
True.
which actually is an interesting move in this situation because takes and takes and takes and takes. Yeah, it's still a possibility. I would venture to say that I suspect Koto played either bishop b7 or f5.
Bishop b7 indeed was his choice. Let's refute d5 because it has been a tempting move in many previous lines, but it may not be the moment for it.
Yeah, thank you, Putiferio45, for the follow. Very greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir. Well, I think the same line we looked before works. Takes on d5 and takes on e4 still works.
Mm-hmm.
So, right?
Yes. Do you want to play out those moves?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So the c3 square is guarded, therefore all the lines that we looked at earlier
Yes, that's the
are not
beauty
possible.
of bishop b2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And the other option, so this is one, this looks much better for white than what we earlier had seen. And a3 is another big question, of course, just asking where's the knight going and what's going to happen to the pawn. So
Yeah.
there are multiple problems with this d5 push, unfortunately, for black.
Yeah.
Therefore, bishop b7
was played in the game. Okay, good.
Yes, it's the best move. Develops the bishop as well as it takes care of the d5 square. It's exactly what black needs in this position. Bishop b2. Let me promote this line because I'm gonna get lost here again. Bishop b2, bishop b7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shoot, that's not the one. Mouse slip. Bishop to b7. main line.
Okay.
And now it's white to move again. And while you evaluate the candidate moves here and what she would go for, I'm gonna quickly run to the bathroom if that's okay.
No, of course.
So it's white to move.
I'll chat. I'll gossip with chat.
Sure, sure. I'll be back.
Yeah, while Anna is not with us, I find these mid-level tactics very hard for me. When there is some sort of a very direct attack, that's much easier for me to play than doing this. And and or even basic positional game, I can handle it. But a position like this in which you have these mid-level tactics throughout, that's one area where I could really use some help and improvement, as you guys can tell. Yes, this is white to play, and after bishop b7, yeah, of course, Sleepy Mario, you're exactly right. These are very complicated positions, which is one of the reasons why Rio Lopez I like to play, but I much it's highly theoretical. It's highly this mix of mid-tier tactics and positional things. So anyway, oh, very good. So let's thanks. I beat Jim Studer. That's why. So here is the question. The candidate move is obviously d5, I agree, and even sacrificing that pawn to open up the bishops is useful. There is also, I really do not want to play take on c5, because after take on c5, this bishop has an increased scope of option. We can play d5, we can play a3, and maybe then play d5 after the knight retreats. And yes, Mieres is right. We can play d5 and then a3 afterwards, and then where is the knight going? That's a very good point. This knight is obviously over defended twice, but it's not. It's, I don't want to say hanging, but its defense is a little bit of a question mark. So the question here is, what would I play, and
Hello.
what would Geller play, you know, and. Okay, so we had Chat and I had a little bit of a discussion, and
Mm-hmm.
the question mark that was asked is, white can play d5, and then there is a threat of a3 trapping the knight,
Yes.
which is actually a fairly good threat, and I think d5 is a good move because it opens the bishop on b2.
Really good job. Well done, Nikola, and everyone else who came
Yeah,
to this conclusion. Good job. Yes, very strong move. Threatens a3 to win the piece, opens up the diagonal of the bishop, also cuts the connection between the b7 bishop and the e4 knight, so there can be issues with this
yep.
e4 knight in some positions.
And now knight f5 is a legitimate threat.
Yes. Yeah, also.
All right.
So
So we vote for d5. Is that what Geller played? I know the smile. No, right?
it is what Geller played. It's the best move in the
Okay.
position.
Yay. Very good.
Well done, well done. So after d5, suddenly the ball is back on our side. I'm not exactly sure. Well, no, I was gonna say I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I do remember which one was the better line for black. So this is still a complex position, but now white is taking the initiative. So suddenly it's more difficult to play
Sure.
this as black. While before, in all those positions where black got to sacrifice the pawn with d5, it was all the other way around with white having material up, but the position being better for black. So d5, really good job. How can black save the knight? Let's think of this from black's perspective.
Well, black can play a5 and put the knight on a6, which is about as dim as a knight can be, right?
Yeah, so a5 is one of the options. What else?
Good question. You know, we can play c4, but that would also, so c4 is another option.
Very good.
And we obviously are more than willing to return the pawn and get rid of that light square bishop.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, I mean, we all of a sudden have a lot of problems as black in this position.
Mm-hmm.
That knight on e4 is question mark. Bishop
Yeah.
on f8 is a question mark.
Yes.
Knight, knight on b, both knights are question marks.
Yes.
And bishop on b7 is basically biting granite with that pawn on d5. So
True.
we need to get serious. So I think c4 is the type of move Kotta would play.
Yeah, c4 has to be played. It's
Yeah.
the best chance of black indeed. Really good job. B takes happened in the game.
Okay.
And now, what would be your thinking here as white? What do you think are the candidate moves and what would you go for? Easy question, Nikola, just an easy one here.
Yeah, okay. All right, so this is one of those positions that requires some thought. I can play knight f5 and ask the question, where is that knight going?
True.
Okay, so that's an easy candidate move. I can, and I'm not saying that I'm doing it because it's probably not good, I can take on e4 and play knight g5 and put the queen on h5 and try for some attack.
Very good. Well spotted.
So that's also an option.
Yes.
I can play a3 and collect that pawn. But frankly, I think bishop on b1 is worth more than that knight and a pawn.
True.
So if I can play queen d4 and activate the queen, collect the pawn on c4 in the next move and put that knight, and where is that knight going?
Where is it going? Good question.
It can go on f6, it can go on c4. In either way, I'm collecting the pawn on c4.
So queen d4, knight f6, and you would take on c4.
Well, I still have that the problem with that rook, but it's a natural developing move, right? All right, so what are the options? And I'm just going to elaborate them a little bit. So I can play this. I can play this. I have a little bit of initiative that I probably want to keep. I can play this. And here I'm threatening a few things. I'm threatening to take on g7 and then give and some sort of funky stuff can be happening. The best move in this position is probably queen d4.
Okay, let's take a look at queen d4.
Okay. All right.
So black's response, we consider that the knight has to abandon d4 square. Knight f6 seems to be reasonable.
Yeah, and there is also knight c5, but that kind of leaves queenside a little bit bare.
True.
Actually, if I play queen c5, I'm going to take on h7.
Knight c5, bishop takes h7.
Yeah, let me
Whoa,
see.
let's analyze that a little bit because it looks like the fireworks that you were missing.
Yeah, so what do we do here? I'm just thinking loud. I'm not
Yeah, yeah,
saying
go
any of
ahead.
this is good.
Go ahead. But your
Let's.
intuition is insanely good for attacking positions, so let's see.
Yeah, yeah. I think you'll get black is getting mated very quickly
True,
here.
well done, well spotted.
Okay,
Really good job.
yeah, he's not gonna. I mean, Kotter is not gonna play queen knight c5.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well
he's
done.
gonna play this. Okay, now what? All right, we cannot. It's ugly to collect this pawn. And I don't want him to play knight d3. I need this bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
So the line would be move by move. The current one you're considering.
Okay, so I have this rook on a1 that's not doing anything.
True.
And if rook was on c1, then knight f5 would have been a natural move.
Yeah, it would be great.
Okay. And I know we can't castle a bishop over a rook, so it's not like we can flip the rook to c1. So that would have been nice. On the other hand, this rook, I can even play rook c1 and threaten to take with. Let me see something. I take it with a rook and then flip the rook over.
So once again, move by move, that would be.
Yeah, the idea here is to play rook c1, and then I don't know what black will do. Let's assume that he wants to get rid of this knight. Play knight d3, takes on d3, takes on c4, and then whatever, and then after the exchange. But he can't play knight d3. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
So I actually want to. I want to prevent knight d3. The way to prevent knight d3 is to play rook c1.
Okay, so that prevents knight d3. What about the d5 pawn?
So that's one thing. Can black take that pawn?
Let's see. After rook c1 is the d5 pawn hanging.
So you would take with a knight, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so so basically take with a knight. Now I can actually take it with a knight. And black takes with a knight again. Or
good
bishop.
question. Good question, because after knight takes d5.
Because then I can take on c4.
Well, maybe, yeah, you're right. Then bishop makes more sense to protect the pawn. And threaten bishop takes f3. So rook c1. We are looking at this position now.
But nothing prevents me to take. You need to take with a knight at some point, right?
And I want to take with the bishop first?
No, I was saying if I can do this.
Oh, you don't want to take on d5. I understand. Yeah, that's something to consider for sure.
Okay. And if you take immediately with a bishop.
Just 1 second. So knight takes d5, rook takes c4. How do we see that position for black?
Okay.
Here, this one.
Yeah, just.
How is this line? Is this good for white? Is this good for black? Rook takes c4. was
Well,
your
we can
move, I
also
think,
take
or
with,
knight
we
takes.
can take with a knight.
Yeah, both. You're right.
Hey, WGM Adriana, thank you for the raiding with a party of 22. That's very greatly appreciated, Adriana. It's very good to see you. Thank you. And please, big shout out to Adriana Nikolova, WGM from Bulgaria, who's a great streamer and a great friend of this. And for the people who came from Adriana's stream, this is Nikola learns chess with one and only international master Anna Rudolf. It's basically a torture chamber in which Anna subjects me to all sorts of vigorous mental exercises. At least that's how she calls it. So,
Yes, that's exactly the case.
thank you. You're more than welcome, and thank you here. And thank you, Samuel Feinberg Chess, for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. All right, so let's get back to this. I can take with a knight, and then I have a concrete threat. You do have an extra pawn. That pawn on d6, you would have been better off without it, bluntly, right, Kotov? I have two bishops that are hitting the black king. I don't have anything concrete yet, but this is threatening to become a very ugly position very quickly. Anyway, oh, thank you, Ulan. That's very great, very nice of you. Thank you for gifting us up to Adriana. That's very nice. Thank you. Okay, so Samuel Feinberg. No, I don't. I don't have a title. Actually, my dream in chess is to have a title. So that's kind of the point of this whole exercise. Thank you for asking. All right, so I can play knight c4 here, and then rook c8 or whatever, and it gets interesting. I can play knight, take it with a rook. But this. Okay. All right. Sorry, and I'm a little.
No, take your time. So knight takes or rook takes are the options that Nikola is considering, and the same for you guys. So I really encourage all the viewers to work those brain cells and also try to solve these positions. What would you go for as white?
Okay. All right. So let me take with a knight, and then there is an option of rook c8, but then I can take on. I can even return the knight on e3 and block the potential mate with knight f1. Right. So
how do you see this position as what does your intuition say? Who is doing better here?
It's a little bit tricky because of the last rank, and that's rather stupid. In rook on a1. I don't see a black having anything directly concrete, right? I can play knight e3, and that basically blocks everything. But then I don't really have much of an advantage either, do I? Is there a way for me to get that knight out with some sort of a threat? I mean, if knight e3 a threat, it really isn't, because he can just move the. I don't have enough attackers on the d5 to do this.
True.
Samuel, my rating is I usually answer somewhere between 1900 and 2000. So that's my USCF rating was based only on 3 games. It's like something like 1600, which is not accurate, but I think that's objectively the rating. So hope that helps.
I think it's above 2000 easily, but that's just my objective opinion there.
Well, Anna is very sweet and very biased. So, but thank you,
Not
Anna.
biased at all.
Yeah.
I've suffered enough defeats versus Nikola to know.
Well, thank you, Anna. All right. So, what do we do here? Um, well, we can reinforce the knight. We
Mhm.
can, which is a natural move. We can also play something along the lines of bishop f5, which point where finally we have connected the rooks.
Mhm.
And I would prefer, I can't point anything concrete, but I would prefer to play this with white.
That's a lovely clip by Chess Noob.
Oh,
I
thank you,
agree. I
Chestnut.
agree.
Yes,
I
thank you.
agree.
24.95? No. To this day, I don't know how to, because Hammer took that same test and he was like 25.40. And if he's 25.40 and I'm 24.95, that test is very badly wrong.
Or it shows your true strength.
Oh, thank you,
Probably
Anna.
that
Yes,
is the
sure,
case.
sure. So let's play bishop f5 here and finally get that, ask where that rook is
Yeah.
going. And honestly, I think white has a very strong initiative for that pawn that, frankly, black would be better not having on d6.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
So if let's say rook b8, although if this is the case that bishop f5 is strong for white, black may also just reconsider whether placing the rook on c8 made any sense or not. So
fair
rook
enough.
c8 seems like to be very natural, but as you said, bishop f5 seems to be a really promising move for white. It connects the rooks, activates the bishop. So this would be another thinking moment for black then, whether to play even rook a8 or not at all.
Yeah, and there is some concrete stuff that's, if we can get displace this knight and then maybe exchange this bishop here between queen, knight, and this bishop, there is some mating net to be had over there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I'm not seeing anything concrete, but that's something to look at. So
yeah, true.
yeah. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
this is a messy position.
Mears
Hmm.
is mentioning queen c5 instead of rook c8, and he may be right.
Certainly, black would be interested in the trade of rook, in the trade of queens,
Yes.
or if you want the rook move, possibly it makes sense to place it on the b5 directly instead of stepping into bishop f5. So lots of options here, but I agree with you that in a practical game, this is a good chance. The
Mm-hmm.
three possible results: black is a pawn up, but white has the initiative, and this centralized queen on d4 is definitely an annoying piece together with the bishop on b2, that queen bishop battery.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
this would be a really messy position. Of course, none of this happened in the game, but we are analyzing
Of
it
course,
because it's
needless to
very
say.
interesting. It's very
Needless to say.
interesting. So the point where the game deviated is here. After b takes c4, Geller didn't play queen d4. Queen d4 is an interesting move, and I think we analyzed some of the best moves for both players there.
Yeah.
Queen d4, knight f6, the capture, or rook c1. We have looked at all of those options. So instead of that, he went for something else that you also mentioned. I wonder if you will guess which one of the lines you mentioned is Geller's move, the plan he went for. Sorry, so it's not the queen move.
Okay, I bet he played knight f5.
Knight
No.
f5 would need to be considered, but let's see if a concrete line with knight f5 works or not. So knight f5, what can black do there? The knight is hanging on e4.
Yeah, but then it's the d5 pawn is also in a little bit of a question mark.
True.
So we can actually take it with the bishop.
to protect the knight on e4.
Yeah, and then if we transition that bishop to somewhere along the line of e6, then we added one huge defender and reinforced the c file, so that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, indeed.
fair enough.
Good job.
Okay, so
yeah. Also knight f5. So bishop takes d5 is one of the problems, and another move to consider is c3 because this is a bigger
that's
issue
a bit much
as
bigger
well.
issue. Agreed. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work. That's too direct.
Yes.
That's way too direct. Okay, so what? So instead of this, what Geller played? Well, what did we consider? We considered a3 too, right?
Yeah. What happens after a3?
Well, the question here is, does c3 work after a3?
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
Okay. All right, so a3, c3, I don't want to take on b4 because cb2 is going to be crushing. I can take on e4, take on e4. Can I take on e4? Yes, I can.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question is, all right, e4, cb2, rook b1, and where is the knight going? Can knight go? Then the knight is actually trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So is c3 actually a legitimate response to a3? That's a good question.
Yeah, so once again, move by move it would be.
All right, so a3.
Yeah.
Let me look at this just briefly, right? You don't want to do that. You want to do this. Well, I can take on h7, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to that knight? That knight is trapped. Well, can it go here? Actually, that's
quite a line.
that's actually quite interesting. Okay. All right. So here, and then this. I mean, okay, fine. Okay. I think I had enough fun with this line, haven't I?
It was a fun one, though. It is a fun one.
Okay, yeah, all right, fine. I'm having too much fun. Sorry about that.
No, that's perfectly fine. These are interesting lines to
Oh,
analyze.
queen check on b1 is Miaris is saying. Yeah, he's right. Instead of, but I can't. Oh, okay, gotcha. Hold on.
When does he mean it?
You mean, where do you? Oh, queen. Okay, gotcha. So here,
right.
queen on b1 and take on b2. But then he has knight d3, I'm afraid. Right? Let me see.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
Yeah, that's... Well, anyway, let me put it this way. He can't play c3 after a3. Or
He can't.
I don't think so, right?
Okay, let's do it once again, move by move, because it's a really messy line. So c3, we can play out those moves. And here, you're considering bishop takes e4.
Yes, and I have... All right, so take...
So c takes b2.
Okay. Takes, and we said here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what? This. And what did we say here? We take on b2, takes here, this is a check, goes here. Am I missing something?
I think this you evaluated well. The issue will not be knight a2, funnily, but another knight move.
Yeah, I figured. But that looked cute.
It is cute. It is really cute.
Okay, so take on e4, rook takes on b2. And okay, so I do need to play this, right? Okay. I mean, what do I have here? I mean, what I can also do, let me think for a second. I can play bishop h7, queen b1, and then take. Right? But then I'm...
Yeah, so those were the lines, right? We were thinking of this and queen b1, but you said that once you take on b2, knight d3.
Knight d3, so that doesn't work, yes.
Yeah, so in the lines with bishop h7, king h7, rook b1.
Yeah. So there is a better move here for black.
Oh, sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong one. Yes, instead of knight a2, knight a2 you evaluated well, and also knight g5 is always in the air too, so yeah, black needs a better move than knight to a2.
Okay, so if he takes on d5, and then we take on d5, take on d5, no, that doesn't work. So this is... I mean, not to mention that there is a threat of knight g5 and then mating attack right here, hanging.
Yeah, so white does have really, really serious threats, but black is a piece up at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, so what options does black have? He doesn't, I don't see an effective Zwischenzug.
No, there isn't. It's just simply the fact that since black is a piece up and eventually that knight falls, so knight a2, rook takes b2, knight c3, you looked at those lines that the knight was gonna fall no matter what. Black cannot keep the material, but will give it back in a way that favors black.
Yep. So what he can do is he can sacrifice the exchange and then take on d5, right? So this being the line, and then what do we take this with? You know what? I can play this as white any day of the week.
I know you would. I know you would. And it looks really scary. It looks scary.
Yeah, I mean, it may not be correct because there's this rook c1 option.
Queen c1, yeah, is an option.
But then, you know, okay.
Now we gotta deal with the mate on h7. True.
Yeah, well, this is kind of probably, you know, well, we can... Anyway, I'm quite sure that, you know, we can... now what? Here. And then we, you know...
This really has become way too sharp, so possibly black should consider
I don't think
being more careful after. This is pretty forcing though. Like, I don't think there's a lot of different options for black. Like once they take on e3 and then take on d5, knight g5 is a forced line, king g8. This is all very concrete.
That rook e3 line is interesting, but I think it's too dangerous for black.
Yeah. The only thing so if we just take a look at this one more time,
sure.
That perhaps even though queen c1 is very tempting, it does abandon the f7 square, which the queen is currently protecting. So black could think of just swapping the move order and keeping the queen on c7 for now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he can play knight f6, and then
Yeah,
it's
yeah. But
and
you're right that in a practical game this is dangerous. It looks really threatening.
sure. I mean, he can play queen h4, and then at some point play rook h3, and so on. But yeah, yeah, I hear you. So is there a solution we are looking? Is that black wants to play this rook e3 and then knight d5, and that saves the knight and transposes into two pieces versus rook?
Yes, this is one of the better options for black, but you are right that in a practical game, even if it's advantage for black according to the engine, it in a practical game, it's still quite a lot of precise move to be played for defending the king
Okay.
side. So this is one of the options, and the other is if you take on d5 immediately, you were considering that too. So we are just giving back the knight, but under better circumstances, because if this is taken
Okay.
after rook takes, white now has to take back on e1 with the
Yeah,
knight,
and then it's yeah. That's
and then these positions, well, now at least the knight is not gonna end up on g5, so we're making our king safer by deflecting the white knight
sure.
from that route. And after, let's say, the trade, you can consider taking on d5 or moving the queen. What would be your instinct here?
Okay, I'm gonna think about it, but I apologize to you and to guys. I need to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead,
Okay,
go
I'll be
ahead.
back. Just
I'm
two
gonna
minutes.
ask the question to the
Yes.
chat in the meantime. So in this position, after, once again, we are looking at the line. These are very complex positions, so don't feel bad if you cannot figure the solution out. We are here to learn from these. We are analyzing these positions because they are difficult. That's the point of all this. They are all very complex and difficult lines, but by analyzing them, visualizing the resulting position, evaluating positions, you can improve a lot. You can learn a lot from these middle games. So don't think that there's a yes or no answer, that there's always one solution. It's not a puzzle rush. There are no straightforward lines in most of these cases. Right now what we are considering is if black gives back the knight with knight takes d5, after knight takes d5, rook takes, white cannot take back on e1 with the queen, because then bishop takes d5 will be a piece up for black. So knight takes e1 has to be played, which is sad because that knight was gonna go to g5 and try to create some kind of a mating net around the black king. It's not happening here. And now, would you guys take on d5 and eliminate that knight, or move the queen away? So those are our two options here. And I'm curious to see in the chat, what do you guys think? What do you think about this? Are we taking on d5 or are we moving the queen? What do you prefer? Lali, you prefer queen to c6? Sepper, you also would move the queen. Yes, so you guys want to keep the pair of bishops. Makes sense, makes perfect sense. Move the queen. Okay, there are a lot of votes for moving the queen. Would anybody prefer the trade on d5? I wonder if any of you would prefer taking on d5 and not moving the queen. Let's see that option too. So bishop takes d5 or queen c6. Queen c6 has most of the votes, if not all of them. Everybody's going for queen c6. Hello to
I'm
Nikola.
back, and yes, I know that everybody
Welcome
checks. I
back.
did wash my hands. Thank you, Minecraft, for the follow, and thank you, Theo, for the cheer. That's very greatly appreciated. Oh, Fiona!
Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona, for the big raid. Fiona, Anthony Steele, who is a big friend of this channel and a big streamer. She goes by the Twitch name of Fiochetta. Let's please give her a shout out. It's very good to see you. Yes, Fiona's streams tend to go far too long. I know that, but is that what she says about? I always find them way too short. I would love if Fiona could do 24/7, 365 streams. So thanks, Fiona.
Yes.
It's very good to see you here. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Fiona. I hope you had a lovely stream. Hi to Frozen Edge as well. Welcome
Yeah.
everybody joining. This is our show with Nikola. It's every Wednesday at this exact time. We still have a bit over half an hour left from the show, so you missed 2.5 hours. Don't worry, we're gonna update you on what you missed. We are studying a game of Yefim Geller, who was one of the top players of his era. He's not as known as some of his colleagues of the time, but he was an extremely strong player and very close to become a world champion at his peak. So this is a game he played against Alexander Kotov, Yefim Geller with the white pieces, and we are considering this sideline where white has just played knight takes d5. Question to you guys. No, sorry, knight takes d5 was earlier. We have knight takes e1 is the last move, but basically the question is whether we would move the queen since it's hanging or play bishop takes d5. Most of the viewers have gone for queen c6. What would be your instinct here and calculation, Nikola, in terms of would you take on d5 or would you move the queen?
Yeah. And just again, thank you, Fiona, so much. It's very greatly
Thank you.
appreciated. And thank you. Thank you again. And Fiona does Fiona's Fight Nights with Open Field Media, and we had quite a lot of very good successes there. Last match was between Anton Korobov, and we also had a match between Ivanchuk and Gatakamsky and a few other matches. So please give a huge shout out to Fiona, and she's a friend of this channel and always welcome. Thank you. All right, so what would I play here is, okay. Yeah, these bishops are starting to dominate the position, and it's questionable whether black actually has time to take this pawn on b2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, queen c6 is, it's not a direct threat because g2 is defended.
Mm-hmm.
We probably want to push that knight from a dominating field on d5.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there is also, I don't know whether you guys looked at it, eliminated for some reason, but I also like you queen c5.
Mm-hmm. True. Queen c5 is
Because-
another good option.
So let me channel my inner Anna Rudolf and go after free stuffs.
Yes, free stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's a legitimate move. It also targets f2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether it's immediate threat, it isn't, because rook b2 and the b2 is hanging and so on and so forth, but then d5 is hanging too. So you're asking me what I would play here, and so I think queen c5 is actually a legitimate candidate move. I actually prefer it than queen c6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then we can also, this rook has been on a8 all game, getting it either on e8 or maybe even c8 is interesting, because if you play on c8 we can even do something there.
Mm-hmm.
Dumb question.
Tell me about it.
What prevents me from just taking on d5 and playing queen c1?
That's a very good question, Nikola.
You know.
That's a really good question, because that's why I wanted to stop at this moment and ask everyone also if you would take on d5 or keep the bishop on the board, because queen c6 and queen c5, I like queen c5 more than queen c6 for the fact that it also attacks a3, but you're right that bishop takes d5 and queen c1 is an even more forcing line. So even though we have this bias that we want to keep the pair of bishops and the bishop on b7 is really strong, but if there's a very straightforward line like that, we gotta calculate it. You're right. So let's see. Bishop takes.
And good night, Sleepy Mario. It's thank you for joining us. It was very good to see you. Okay, so what's the plan here? Take on d5, play rook c1, play rook e8. I mean, what does white do? He cannot move that rook, so he would have to play something along the lines of queen d3, right? Or even queen d1.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, queen d1 is probably better. Then we can play. Can we play rook e8? Maybe not. But we can take on d1.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me think for a second. So
Sure. Take your time.
takes,
Mm-hmm.
takes,
Mm-hmm.
c1, returns. And this takes on d1, takes on d1, rook c8. And I think I'm winning here.
Shall we play those moves out on the
Yeah,
board?
let's play it. I think and game over, right? Is it?
It looks
No,
like.
but it's not. It has this stupid knight d3 move. But I'm gonna win this against Stockfish.
Yes. You have a few extra pawns, including a b2 pass pawn.
Yeah.
At the moment you will play d5, the bishop comes to a3 as well, either
Yeah.
capturing the pawn or just supporting the b2 pawn. So this is a completely winning endgame indeed.
Yeah.
Sometimes simplification can be the right way, especially with material up and having a b2 pawn. So that pass pawn in an endgame is insanely strong as long as we can keep it on the board.
Okay. I should have gone to bathroom earlier.
You're finding all the best moves indeed, and very
Okay.
quickly. Well done.
Okay.
Well done. This
I
doesn't
mean,
mean, of
yes,
course,
there's
that
rook b1, but
yeah,
still, this is two passed pawns against bishop. It's dead. Okay, so did I overex? I think it's all forcing moves, Anna. To be honest with you, right?
it is. It is. I think this is the best line going for the endgame with Queen c1. I was just gonna add that those of you who said Queen to c6 or Queen to c5, those are also advantage for black. Obviously, we still have two extra pawns, so it's difficult not to have an advantage. But Bishop takes d5 is more straightforward, so it is the best line trading on d5. But the other moves are also better for black.
Yeah.
This, of course, did not happen in the game.
No.
I guess this doesn't need to be added anymore. It's just obvious. So let's go back to what actually happened.
Oh, and by the way, guys, the people who are here for the first time, those are the famous words. None, of course, this wasn't played in this game. Yeah, and Stone
Yeah.
2709, you're exactly right. That's probably better. But honestly, this is a one position. Yes. And
Yeah.
so anyway,
So the whole point is that there's no time for a3 because c3 is strong for black, and that pawn on b2 became a real issue in white's camp. This is a very lengthy line that we have analyzed, but a3, it had to be calculated. Unfortunately for white, it does not work. So in this position, we need to find something better for Geller. We already considered a couple of other options, but we are now going back to what I said earlier, that Nikola, you did mention the plan that Geller went for. It's not the one we looked at. So the line, remember the line where you would be taking on c4? It was still a pawn up for black, but white does have quite some compensation with the queen on d4. So that's one of the promising lines for white.
okay.
But in the game, Geller played something else that also aims to attack. What other attacking idea can you think of? And you already mentioned it, but it was quite a long ago. It was quite a long ago when you mentioned it,
Okay.
actually.
All right. So he didn't play a3. He didn't play queen d4. a3 was probably a winning move, I think. We kind of looked into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to Grandmaster David Howell.
Oh, I didn't know David is with us too.
So,
Hello, David. No pressure
uh,
at all on you, Nikola. From now on, only super grandmasters are watching your
yeah,
game.
thank you, David. Thank you for joining us. And let's play. I've given David is obviously a VIP in every channel he comes in, so he's getting a diamond. And if we can give him a
Mm-hmm.
shout out, it would be great. Actually, I'm already here, so I'm gonna do that right
Mm-hmm.
now. And if obviously everybody knows who David Howell is, so it's very good to see you. Thank you, David, for joining us. All right, so to go back to this, the question is, what did he play that's an attacking move? And we decided that knight f5 is not it. We have decided that queen d4 is not it, and that a3 is not it. Correct?
One more time, because there are so many. Can you
All
list
right.
them again?
So knight f5,
We did look at knight f5. We did look at
a3, and we look at
a3.
queen d4.
Yes, those ones we have already analyzed. Queen d4 was the most promising among those three.
Yes.
And let's add something else to the list. Something
Okay.
that you mentioned, but it was a while ago.
Yeah, we had. I think we looked into the option of playing. So, uh, knight d4, which might be too
Mm-hmm.
pedestrian.
Knight d4, that's an option.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, when Anna says that's an option, that's a no.
Okay, you're right. It's an option, but not a good one. Because c3 is quite a big deal. So unfortunately, knight d4
No.
doesn't deal with c3.
No. All right. So, what else can we play in this position? Well, we can play bishop d4 and escape from that c3 threat.
True.
What else can we play in this position? Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Miaris
That's a question to the viewers as well.
Yeah,
I just
Miaris
want
is
to make sure
mentioning.
everyone is sweating.
Yeah, Miaris just mentioned Queen A4, which is an interesting move. I'm not sure how to respond to Knight on D3 though. Okay, so that's another option. We can also, I think we actually discussed this. We can actually take on E4, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you mentioned that. What's the follow-up plan?
Okay, so take on F4. Rook takes on E4 obviously, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And now what? And now we can play knight G5.
Yes. What happens there?
And where does the rook go? H4. That rook would be trapped after knight F5, so no. Okay, so
Knight G5, and we are thinking where to place the rook.
yeah, so where are we placing the rook?
Mm-hmm.
We cannot place it on G4. We can put it all the way back, right? We cannot place it on E5 or E6. E7 doesn't appear to make much sense, so it's going back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't want to place the rook anywhere on any of these three fields. That looks
True.
like a rook that's about to be trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so goes back, then we can play queen, and then we can take on h7, right?
Good question.
And we were saying
Is the
that
position ready for that?
because the queen defends f7, it's not a good move. Okay. Hey, my dear friend Worship, it's very good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Thanks. It's always good to see you. Please give us thanks, Chess Noob, to giving a shout out to Worship. Okay, but honestly, this is the most promising line.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's take a look at it also. Let's play out those moves on the board.
so
Bishop
let's
takes.
takes, knight g5, and rook e8 we said, right?
Mm-hmm. How would you continue here?
Good question. Okay. Well, okay, so obvious move is to just do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then
What happens after queen h5?
Then yeah, okay. I guess black needs to play. There is a rather obvious mating threat, right?
Yeah. How
So
can black
I
deal with
play at
it?
h6, and then I play knight f5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you will not move the knight away.
No.
So if I take the knight, I'm gonna try to survive if I take the knight.
Okay, you probably will survive because this is probably a little bit too aggressive.
Mhm.
Okay, so how do you get mated here?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I can take on g5,
Mm-hmm.
which is a legitimate move,
True.
but that you play f6, and then I don't have much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So I have. So what I can do is.
So if f6, you're saying that.
Well, f6
wait.
f6 loses the rook, so that's not an option.
Oh, I thought you meant here. I thought you wanted to look at f6 here.
Yes, rook f6 here. Then I have this.
Yeah. So you can either play knight h6 or bishop takes f6 after f6.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see here. I can do this. But do I have a concrete threat in this position?
Mm-hmm. That is the question.
Okay. I mean, this queen. Yeah, this queen is annoying. All right. All right, so what happens if I play rook e7?
Rook e7.
Yeah, I'm attacking it. I don't have enough attackers, do I?
You mean, so after bishop takes f6?
So what does the black play here?
Yeah. Let's say black tries to bring some more pieces to the help of the king. And
takes on d5, yeah, and that prevents me from playing rook e7, even if it were a good move. I don't see a mate here, Anna.
Mhm. Yeah, this position is still a mess, but there isn't really a mate. F6 isn't the only move even. So this would be still just unclear. And after queen takes g5, um,
I,
another option, unfortunately for us, is just once again this really, really painful move
yeah.
blocking the way of the bishop.
Yep.
This is the
I just
sadder
saw that.
version.
Yeah, I just saw
Yeah.
that, and that's the end of. Hey, Chicken Morales. Yes, Anna is torturing Nikola today. That's it's Wednesday at 5 p.m. New York time. Of course,
Yeah.
it's Anna. All right. So however beautiful this is, and I still think this is the right move.
It's possible to go for it because it was really a messy line. Um, I'm just gonna show you how the game went because there will be similar patterns. The only difference is that
Okay.
in the game, um, Kotov went back to e7 with the rook. So I just want to make sure we are looking at these
So this is what was
ideas.
played in the game. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but it can be similar in terms of the ideas. So queen
Okay.
h5 is what we were looking at, and it's what happened in the game.
Okay.
And after h6, what do you think Geller played?
Good question. Okay. Keep looking for a forcing line that may or may not exist. Okay.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so do we, all right, let me think for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I, I'm not threatening anything right now, right? I can play knight f5,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, then it's, the question mark is what the black does with the rook.
Mm-hmm.
I also need to find a counter to c3, but that's a separate question. So basically, this is a obvious candidate move. What else is obvious? This bishop is defending these two pawns, and so Mieres is saying play bishop f6, which is actually interesting. But why is Kotov reinforcing f7?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, why did he play rook e7 as opposed to rook e8?
Um, Good question. And also, if we include the trade, then it's the same. So, um, only thing if he had gone to e8, his rook would not be hanging. So it's not forced to do something about the e file. But he did play rook e7. Maybe rook e8 was more precise because then knight f5 was not gonna be a tempo. But in this position, do you think black can take the knight on g5?
Right now?
Yes.
Good question. You mean take on g5?
Yes.
Um, yeah, this is. I don't see it. Where is it? Come on, come to me. Well, we have this rook e7 motive is very strong, right? But basically,
Mm-hmm.
we're analyzing this position, Anna, right?
Yeah. Yes. That is the main question. If black can take the knight, if black cannot take it, black is in trouble because all the white pieces are in the attack already.
Okay. So why don't if we run rook e7? Okay, hold on. Hold on a second. We have an interesting threat here. And that threat is if we take on g7, we have a mating threat here. Okay. and this king is in a little bit of a trouble. If I take on g5, you will play f6. So that I don't see it again. Do we have time to swing the rook over?
Let's see. Let's see. Rook e3. The
All
threat
right,
is
so
rook h3.
rook h3 with a mate, but that looks. Now what? All right. Rook e3 has an advantage that c3 stops working, which is actually not necessarily a small thing.
Very true, because that was always an issue.
Okay.
So what could be a defense here for black?
Hold on a second. Before we do this, yeah, I think actually Miera's helped me. So instead of doing this, can we do this and then this?
So you want to take on g7 instead of rook e3?
But then let me see here. If he takes, and I don't have a mate, and you have a rook and two pieces for the thing.
Yeah, always needs to be considered that black gives up some of the material. Very good job. Yeah, that is.
So that's pretty doesn't work.
Yeah, advantage
so
for black
let's go
queen
back
e7.
here.
Yes, so rook h3 is the clear threat. Can black defend against that threat?
The clear threat is rook h3, and then there is a mate there somewhere. Okay. Hey, 96.2. Thank you for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Well, what I can do is I can play c3 and then rook c8.
So c3.
Okay. So c3, I guess takes.
And your idea is that if I take,
then I play rook c8.
Yeah. Do I have to take though?
Oh, you don't. And I'm short the tempo. And you play this, and I have no defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Can you play g4 instead of c3?
Yeah, that's also suggested by a couple of you in the chat.
Also suggested. Okay.
Yeah. So let's see.
This. Okay.
I'm just gonna say forced line for white, and it's the type of position Nikola excels at.
All right. So force line for white in this.
Yep. S4 does mate in 5.
Okay, then Nikola is not in his top of his game.
Nikola can find it. It's one of the final questions because the game is basically over after rook e3, and that happened in the game. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So after g4, what do we have? Oh yeah. Okay. Of course. That this wins immediately. Okay.
Because after g takes.
Yeah, I took on g4 and
king h7.
And yeah, and this is a very nice, pretty mating pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
The bishop and the queen, then the rook joining,
Yeah, yeah.
killer attack.
I got seduced because I kept wanting, and I don't remember the name of the mate. You know, the mate when knight is on e7 and rook is on this side, but
Yeah,
that there is no team that brings there. So
yeah, yeah. It's tempting to try to construct that, but you're right. In this
it's
position, you
not
cannot
there.
go for it. So neither c3 nor g4 are helping in the game. Kotov tried bishop to c8, but this is also a position where we have a forced mating line. Can you spot it? Final question of the day, guys. Final question of the day.
Okay, so isn't okay? So all right. Hey Theogantis, thank you for the cheer. Thank you for all your cheers this time. So yes, Miaris, it's Anastasia, mate. Thank you, sir. Um, okay. I'm having a hard time today with the forced mating lines. Isn't Rook H3 a mate quite immediately?
Rook h3 is winning too. It's not the fastest, but it's completely winning. So I'm accepting Rook h3 as
Okay.
one of the solutions because it's completely
So,
winning.
hold on, let me find that forcing mate. It's
Yeah.
embarrassing. I've been actually practicing mating patterns recently. Um, so, what am I missing? Okay. Well, all right. So, all right. So you were saying it's a forcing variation.
Yeah, mate in 6 to
Mate
be
in
more
6?
exact. In the best of cases for black. So
Okay. So
the longest they survive.
mate in 6 here. There is. There are there any meaningful sacrifices of the queen? I don't see them. So okay.
The shorter ones are mate in 3.
Yeah, okay.
Mate in
No,
6 is like the
yeah,
longest they can make it.
yeah. I
Or
see.
mate in 5. One of these. I don't remember actually.
Yeah, I see it. It's this.
Nice. And the idea is?
Well, if you don't take, this is a mate, and if you take, then this is a killer, and I'll actually draw it. It's actually quite pretty.
Mm-hmm. Well done.
Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. That is how the game ended. All the way to rook takes f8 check. That's where Kotov resigned.
Wow. Okay.
What did you think of the game, Nikola, and what did you find some of the most instructive moments?
Okay. The most instructive. I mean. Well, honestly, the most instructive moment is that I need to practice these mating patterns more. This is something that
That's
I
also
should be
something.
able to. No, honestly,
Yeah.
I need to be able to find this without without you telling me that there is a mate there. So, and that's the these patterns are the alphabet of chess, and the better we learn the alphabet, the better. Okay, so I'm gonna actually walk through briefly through the whole game, just real quick for everybody. So e4, e5, this Rio Lopez, I've played this so many times. A d3 is d3. Actually, it's very funny. I had a discussion with Chiu about her Rio Lopez, and she said that she plays d3 for people who are lower rated.
Yeah, keeps the positions more complex.
Yes.
I'm guessing that's what she wants.
Yes, yeah, and that's fine, and God knows how many. So, Um, then we went here. All of this is type of positions that I played many times, but I have this position on a board probably upwards of 100 times.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm reasonably familiar with the motives. I usually play h3. I usually consider a4, and but I don't play knight e3, which is interesting.
Hmm.
So this is plain vanilla Yu Lopez. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, yes, Miras, during your sleep you should find those mates. Exactly like the good old military days when you're supposed to know. I was in the Signal Corps, so you're not supposed to know Morse code in your sleep. I remember that. So anyway, it's the same with mating patterns. Anyway, so rook e8. I mean, this is all plain vanilla. And then somewhere along the line that this stopped being plain vanilla and became a toughest position, toughest game I usually have to deal with, which is this tactical opportunities is in what is basically a very positional game.
Hmm.
You know, for me, and I'm sorry if I'm saying something that you guys already know. If it's a wild attacking game, at least the plan is obvious, mating the king. If it's a simple positional game, that's also. But a position like this in which you have all these tactical opportunities and they require this much calculation, these are very difficult positions for me to play against. All right, so bishop b1, knight e4, bishop b7. Um, the most fascinating part for me was how evaluation changed based on very simple pawn thrusts.
Yes.
Like this was like literally one position, and this was completely
True.
different.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
earlier, the option that Black had to
yeah.
give up a pawn with d5, taking multiple times on d4 and d5, that was another of those pawn pushes
Yeah.
indeed.
And second was to what extent Kotta was willing to embrace risks.
Hmm.
You know the you know incidentally in way back when in the late 70s, early 80s, Spanish opening in was called Spanish torture. So I think I got reminded of it.
I'm glad.
Okay, so this became. Oh, this is not the game, is it?
It is.
Oh, it is
It
the
is the
game.
game.
It is the game. Okay.
And the position is winning whether
Yeah.
Black takes the knight or not. That position is already winning
Yeah,
for
and
White.
this is. He didn't play c4.
No, he played bishop c8, but all of them are losing.
Yeah, that's fine. So this was the game. This is actually a very nice pattern.
Hmm.
It's it's a great game. It's actually, in all honesty, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. Uh, you and I have looked together into quite a lot of very interesting games that I actually enjoyed more than this one.
Hmm.
Highly tactical, sparks flying, and so on and so forth. But this is probably the type of game I need the most
Hmm.
to
I'm glad.
practice in. In other words, type of game in which you have um, dynamic opportunities, as Chesnob said, and you have an enormous amount of theory,
Hmm.
which I'm reasonably familiar with. But on the other hand, you have all these tactical possibilities that came into play. It's a fascinating
Yes.
game. It's a fascinating game. Thank you. It's of all the games you and I have looked together, this is the most complex game.
I'm glad you find it
Yeah.
that instructive, even if it was not the most of the fireworks and sacrificial attacks. But that's something that I know that
Yeah.
Nikola is already really good at. So I like it when you need to find the right moments to strike, and other moments are just getting the position ready, improving your pieces. Those pawn pushes were extremely crucial in this game for both sides. So I'm happy that you also liked the choice for today.
Yeah, no, thank you, Anna. This was a great game. I'm looking forward to looking more into it. I can just imagine what engine is making out of it.
Yeah, yeah, and not all of this was always the best for White, but White just kept going with the initiative. So in a practical game, this is great. But you will see with the engine that Black had better defense options, of course.
Okay. All right. True nature of you, Lopez mate. This mate, yeah, with a bishop sacrifice and a knight attack. Yeah, it makes sense. Um, I'm still surprised that Koto accepted this many risks against Geller.
Hmm.
Uh, that's calling for trouble, to be honest with you.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the great evening. Thank you for the fabulous stream. Thank you, Theo, and Theo, you have been very supportive forever. I think you have earned yourself a diamond. So let me make that.
Thank you for the kind words, everyone, and I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the game as well. Hopefully, it was instructive for you, and you also feel like you have learned something from today's game because that's the idea. That's the
Yeah.
idea.
I have just a couple of program announcements. I am looking for our Sunday stream is going to be a little bit different model than what you guys are used to. Our Adopt a Nikola match. I will send an announcement both on Twitter and in in what's wrong with my
Discord.
Discord. Thank you, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and this is gonna happen this Sunday at noon. I'm probably gonna do one more weekly stream that's dedicated to tactics, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. I've been promising that for some time. Unfortunately, my IRL has been acting up recently. Anyway, thank you again for joining us. Thank you again for being here. And now here is the big question: whom should we raid?
Mm-hmm.
And who is streaming right now? Let's see. If you guys have any suggestions, please put them in. And I am. Hold on. Come on. All right. So. Okay. So I think our dear friend Squirrely has been a big supporter of the. Oh, you know what? I have a better idea. Squirrely will forgive me. Julian Landau is streaming,
Mm-hmm.
and Julian is a dear friend of mine. We actually have committed to. So let me send you to Julian Landau. He's a doctor. He's amateur like myself, obviously much stronger than me. He's an FM. He lives in California. He has just become a staff member of a hospital, and he's very strong. And please give him a shout out. Anyway, hey Chess Master, thank you, and let's give Julian a raid. Come on. And he's gonna think that this is a troll, but it's not. So anyway, talk to you soon, guys. And looking forward to see you again. Bye.
See you guys next Wednesday here on the
Raid is
channel.
going. So okay. Yes, Road to Chess Master. I have him on my list. I'm gonna take care of that very, 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 very shortly. So. Thank you, Libs. Thank you, Separate. Thank you, Chess Noobs. Thank you, Will Everett. Raid now. Okay. All right. Let me make sure. this one.